Hello and welcome to another edition of Composer Talks with White Bear PR. And today we talk all about awards and why you should submit. My name is Thomas Mikusz.
And I'm Chandler Poling. Hi.
Hi, everybody. So Chandler, before we dive into awards and requirements, I want to talk to you about the importance of awards and why composers should submit their scores.
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the greatest things, of course, is being recognized by your peers in your industry. I think it's a great feeling of accomplishment in your career, having contributed, something to the craft of writing music for film, TV, or video games, and getting an award. So the industry recognition, I think, is a wonderful thing and why you should submit.
And I want to add, you also want to submit in order to be seen. You have your name on the ballot to be seen by your peers, for example, at the World Soundtrack Academy, or at the Oscars, even if it's a smaller film and you think you don't have a chance. If it's eligible, you should submit, be on the eligible score list, and get your name out there and be seen by industry professionals, by filmmakers, etc. And especially women composers, I want to encourage to please submit and get the numbers out there and be seen out in the world. So let's dive right into all those different awards. We are right into Emmy season, Primetime Emmys. Chandler, what can you tell us?
Absolutely. Well, first thing I want to just explain really quickly is that the Television Academy had a split in the past. So they used to be one Academy, and the reason why there's so many different Emmys is because they have split. So there's the National Television Academy and there is the Television Academy. Primetime Emmys is the Television Academy based here in Los Angeles. And it's important to understand that it is only for programs that are in prime time or evening slots, or if you're on streaming. So if you have a project that aired during the daytime, of course, you go to the Daytime Emmys, which we can talk about later. The other thing to understand about primetime is that the voting body is consistent of a music branch, which is composers, songwriters, music supervisors, and people that work in the television music industry. And that branch determines if you are a nominee and if you are a winner. It never goes to the larger popular vote of the entire Television Academy. It all stays within the music branch.
Do you know roughly how many members there are at the music branch at the moment?
I don't. I want to estimate it's around 400.
And Chandler, you talked about streaming earlier and said that streaming, one can decide if it's daytime Emmys or primetime Emmys, but it's not really the composer that decides, isn't it? The studio that decides, and the composer has to follow where the project is submitted. And can a composer just submit a score, or does the project also have to be submitted?
Right. Well, correct on both. On the account that, yes, you have to submit your score alongside where the show is being submitted. So yeah, if the producers and the distribution company decide to go to Daytime Emmy or Primetime Emmy, you have to go with them. And no, you cannot submit your score for an award if the show is not submitted alongside for consideration. So you must just always be in communication with your show producers and kind of understand what they're doing before you make any moves.
And can you quickly just let us know which main music categories composers and songwriters can submit to?
Sure. In the Primetime Emmys, there is music for a series. There's music for a limited series movie special. There is main title theme music, music and lyrics. Sorry, I'm running out of fingers. There is also music for a documentary and documentary special series. And if you are one of these, music direction as well. And also music supervision. Some composers and music supervisors might blend, so important to understand that there's all these categories to consider when you're submitting for the Primetime Emmys.
And can you give one tip of if a composer submits for any of those categories, how to actually, what's next then? How do you promote yourself? Obviously, you can always hire White Bear PR, but do you have any other tips on that?
Sure. Well, first of all, you have to select one episode for consideration in any of the categories, or if the song, obviously you select one song. The important thing to decide when choosing that is, what is musically the most interesting episode? you know, a lot of people submit the pilot just by default because typically that is what new shows will submit for consideration. But perhaps the finale or a episode in the middle, it has more music. Consider the minutes of music, because you are submitting the cue sheet alongside with the submission, and your composer peers and everyone is going to be looking at the cue sheet and the submission and making their decisions that way. So if you've only written 12 minutes of music in an episode versus somebody who submitted for 45 minutes of music, you can think that as a deciding voter, you might be like, well, 45 minutes is a lot more music you have to write, so I'm going to vote for this person. So just think internally, how much music are you putting forward to consider? Sorry, what was there? There was.
And
one more
would you
question.
also look at the impact on storytelling? How the, you know,
Yes,
what
of
an
course.
emotional
Yeah.
impact?
Yeah, exactly. You know, how the music plays in the drama, how much music is upfront in an episode. You have to be considerate of how much television people are watching and how much they're considering. So if they want to check out your episode, is your music not going to kick in until 15 or 20 minutes later? You know, perhaps you're going to lose their interest because they don't hear any score. So just be considerate of all that. Oh, and then how to kind of get the word out there besides hiring Webfair PR is, you know, use social media, befriend composers and songwriters and everybody on Facebook, on Twitter. Tell people that you've submitted for, you know, specific categories, and just be open about it. Just say, hey, you know, my show is up for consideration. You should take a listen, and, you know, link to a Spotify link if you have a soundtrack release. If you don't have a soundtrack release, talk to the network. Maybe they'll release it.
And you have to be careful. Chandler just mentioned use social media and say, please consider my project. The one thing you're not allowed to do is use any of the Television Academy or Emmy logos for your consideration posts or emails. I want to move on. We could talk a lot about the Emmys, but you mentioned daytime Emmys also. Let's talk a little about that.
Sure. So while the primetime obviously is the evening, daytime is daytime. Typically, it is for soap operas or children's programming. There is 2 music categories in the daytime Emmy. Well, there's technically 4 if you think of the song categories, but there's 2 composing categories. There is composing for drama and then composing for daytime television. And so the drama typically goes to a soap opera, and the daytime will go to typically an animated or children's live action series. So if you are a composer of this type of program, you should definitely consider submitting for daytimes. The voting body is different. It's not so much a music branch. It is the body of voters of the Daytime Emmys, which are primarily based in New York, but they are, of course, nationwide. And I think it's important to understand that it is a much smaller community of voters, so it's not as many. And yeah, just get the word out as much as possible that you have submitted.
And I think there is 2 other Emmys that have music categories. The News and Doc Emmys and the Sports Emmys are new now with the music categories. Isn't that true?
Correct. Yeah, there's 2 more music categories, whether you've done a sports documentary that has aired on television or a documentary in general. So really it all comes down, as we said earlier, where is your film or television series being submitted? So just be in communication with your producers and distributor and understand whether they're going for daytime, primetime, news doc, whatever.
Cool. So let's go through the calendar here. The next big award, and one that I really like, is the World Soundtrack Academy in Ghent. Can you talk about their awards and what composers have influence over as far as submitting and what they don't?
Sure. Yeah. So they have a number of awards. They have Film Composer of the Year, Television Composer of the Year. They have the Discovery of the Year, and they have the Public Choice of the Year. So the Film Composer of the Year and the Television Composer of the Year is not a submission process. Every film that has been released and every television show that has aired is under consideration. So there's no submission process. Discovery of the Year is by submission, and it has some requirements. I recommend going to worldsoundtrackacademy.com and looking up their latest information, as they have changed the eligibility information over the years. So just go to their website to find the latest info, and you'll find information of how to submit. And then Public Choice is, again, any score that has been released within the eligibility window. They create a shortlist curated by the International Film Music Critic Association. So the public choice, of course, is open to the general public. The rest of the award, the Discovery of the Year award is determined by the advisory board, and the film composer and television composer of the year is determined by the larger academy of voters. And if you're interested in becoming a member and you're a composer, it's quite easy to join.
And you mentioned the advisory board, and I think it's quite interesting also, to be seen by that advisory board. But who is on that board? Can you kind of quickly?
Yeah, sure. It's agents, it's PRO reps, it's publicists, studio music executives, I should say, some high-profile composers, and of course people from Ghent, the festival coordinators.
Wonderful. The next big award, we now go into the major film awards, the Golden Globes. What can you tell us about that?
Sure. So the Golden Globes, you will be submitted with the film. There's no submission process that an individual can do. So you have to be in communication with your producer director to make sure that as they're submitting the film, that the score is also under consideration. The voting body is the Hollywood Foreign Press. It's roughly 90 to 95 bodies that are determining this. So you just have to understand that it's a small body of people that are being influenced by the studio system. So the more active your studio is involved in the promotion of the score, I think the greater chances you have of being recognized.
Next up is the Grammys. And
the
that's
Grammys
a bit more complicated.
Yeah, the Grammys is a lot. There's a lot of categories. There's over 88 categories. In the visual media categories, they have visual media soundtrack and visual media score soundtrack. So obviously you want to go for score soundtrack, as the various artists one is quite unrelated to composing. There's arranging categories, there's a cappella arranging categories, there's lots of classical categories if you're releasing music that is unattached to visual media. So, and again, always go to the Grammy website, get the latest information on their eligibility and their rules and everything that has to do with that. And that, of course, is determined by the Recording Academy. How they vote is they vote in the top, everyone votes for the top 8 awards, Record of the Year, Album of the Year, etc. But they have to choose to vote in the visual media category. So it's important to be encouraging on social media or anybody that's around, just to say, hey, please consider voting in the visual, soundtrack for score soundtrack for visual media.
And I want to point out there's also several Facebook social media groups for the Grammys where you can join that group and post in there and encourage each other to vote in those categories and make sure to get the vote out in the soundtrack category. And here the album is nominated and not the film, obviously.
Correct, yeah. You must have a soundtrack album release. You cannot submit if you don't have an album for consideration.
February.
And I should say how you submit is often through the record label. So if you had a soundtrack release, contact your label rep and make sure that they have submitted. The window is actually open right now. So in the summer is typically when you submit. So just talk to your label, make sure. You can submit yourself. You have to be a Recording Academy member. So join the Academy if you are interested and check out all of their rules on how to engage and join. But typically just go through your record label.
And you just mentioned that they submit, also with the Emmys, the submission fees, sometimes are they covered by the record label and the studio, and sometimes the composer covers it, or how does that work?
Well, it's my understanding that the Grammys are free. I've never done a Grammy submission because I'm not a record label, we do publicity. So my understanding, the Grammys are free. The Emmys, if you're a Television Academy member, you have 2 free entries. If not, I believe it's $200 to submit per category. The Golden Globes is free to submit. Oscars are free to submit. And World Soundtrack Awards for Discovery of the Year has a small fee. I think it's 35 euros.
Well, let's talk about the BAFTAs. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the BAFTAs is probably the award that I know least about, because obviously this is the British Film Academy and we're an American-based company. So the British Film Academy determines the nominees. There is a Best Music category in the BAFTAs, meaning it is more than score. And obviously this is famously done when A Star is Born was nominated and won, which has primarily songs and covers. So it's interesting that that Academy is interested in voting on how music impacts a film overall. It doesn't matter if it's original or not. Or if it's a song versus a score. It is music overall and how it impacts a film.
Great. And then, but with the BAFTAs, I think as with every award show where it's very important to also be active in the Academy, to be active with your branch, obviously with the Primetime Emmys, with also with the Oscars we'll talk about, to be good peers, like good with, in the music branch, with the Society of Composers and Lyricists. I think the more people know you, the more people know about your work, the higher the chances that your work also gets listened to and seen and hopefully nominated. So let's talk about the Oscars.
All right, the Oscars, yes, the Motion Picture Academy, also known as. The Oscars is, of course, the main award. It is submitted by the composer, so it is important that you submit your own work. The studio cannot submit on your behalf, or you have to sign a waiver allowing them to submit on your behalf. So if you have scored a project and they are submitting the film for Oscar consideration, make sure that you are submitting your score along with them. So it's important to just, again, be in communication with your producer or distribution company or whatever, and be aware. The submissions are open all year round. So if your film premieres in the summer, you can also submit in the summer. You don't have to wait until the deadline. The other thing about the Motion Picture Academy, of course, is the voting body is a music branch, again, where the music branch will determine the nominees, and the music branch consists of composers, songwriters, music editors. There's no music supervisors allowed yet, but they are determining the nominees, and then the greater Motion Picture Academy determines the winner.
Cool. And two fun awards I want to talk to you about. One is the Gang Awards. I know you like the Gang Awards very much also. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. The Gang Awards is the Audio Network Guild. That is a collection of video game audio people. So this is an award that honors music as well as audio, voiceover, performance, anything that has to do with what you hear in video games. The awards take place at GDC, which is the Game Developers Conference that takes place in San Francisco. And it's a great celebration, a really polished, run award show for what is essentially a member-run organization that's not at a level like the Motion Picture Academy. So they have a really sleek award show that takes place at GDC, and they have lots of different categories. So one, you should definitely join. If you're into video games and you are composing and scoring for games, definitely join the Game Audio Network Guild and vote and submit your work.
And how about the Annie Awards for animation?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of animation. So I joined the Animation Guild so that I could be involved in more animation and also understand the Annie Awards. So CIFA is the Animation Guild, and they created the Annie Awards to honor the craft and achievement in animation. So music has two categories. They have music in film and music in television. So they are done, again, by self-submission. So you could submit yourself, or you can go through your distribution/production company. And it's important to understand the voting body is, of course, Animation Guild voters. And who, of course, makes the most animation is probably Disney. So just understanding where your body of voters are. So if you worked on a Disney project and you want to submit it, make sure you communicate that with your Disney peers and make that understood. Of course, Netflix now has a big animation wing, and there's so many more illumination, and I can go on all the different areas of animation, but that is who is determining the winners of the Annie Awards. The nomination is done by a very small committee. So all submissions go to, I think, a selection committee of maybe 30 people. So it's very hard to target them and influence them and for your consideration campaigns. And then, once it's open to the wider body, then they vote.
But the Annie's also, I think you can do a mailing to the voting body that can be done on your behalf.
Correct.
So I think we covered most of the major awards. I know it was very quickly, but we just wanted to give an overview as far as deadlines and eligibility. It's changing. So we would really encourage composers to check that out, Google the awards online and look at it online. Two smaller awards I want to talk to you about, Chandler. One is the Jerry Goldsmith Award. They just announced that they are open for submissions. What is that award about?
Sure, that takes place in Spain. It's an organization that founded the Ubeda, then Corbeda, then Malaga film music festivals, and they created a Jerry Goldsmith Award in conjunction with Jerry Goldsmith's family, and they honor various types of music. So this is a music specific award, and they honor music and film, television, documentary, video games, commercials, short films, there anything where you could find original score. So they have a lot of different categories. They have a ceremony that takes place in Spain, and you get a tiny little Jerry Goldsmith shaped award if you win.
It's very cute.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the infamous HMMAs. What can you tell us about that?
What can I say about the HMMAs? So Hollywood Music and Media Awards that take place every year in Hollywood. They honor lots of different categories. They honor music in music and film, then they honor music in sci-fi, music in horror, music in drama, music and television, main title theme music, video game, short film, et cetera, on and on. There's a lot of different categories. This is a self-submission, has a small fee. I believe it's around $30 to $40. And they have an annual ceremony that is infamous to everybody who has ever gone. But it is highly, people are very active on social media talking about the HMMAs. So it is a worthwhile thing to submit for and consider, and to let your industry know more about you.
And there's also some social media groups about the HMMAs. So, also there you can get a lot of information or share with other composers that have been nominated in the past. I know this was very quick. We just wanted to give an overview. There's some smaller awards. And I think if you're starting out as a composer, you make sure there's tons of festival music conferences like Soundtrack Cologne that have their special awards or rescoring awards. And I think it's important, especially when you start out, to submit to those and be recognized or get like a little diploma, something also for social media, and be recognized for your great work. But overall, we just want to encourage everyone to submit to awards, to get your work out there, to get your name out there and be seen. Chandler, do you have any closing words about awards?
I just realized that the World Soundtrack Awards, of course, has the Outstanding Belgian Composer Award. So I don't want to overlook the Belgians or the Young Composer Award, which is what you were just talking about earlier. But yeah, there's so many different awards out there. Definitely go for it. It looks great in your bio and on your social media. If you win, even some from a festival you might never have heard of, it still gets you some very good recognition.
Well, thanks for tuning in. I hope this was helpful for our viewers, and check out our YouTube channel, and we'll see you soon on Composer Talks with White Bear PR. Bye.
Bye.